The person who wrote to me to interest me in this story, his name is Joshua Bey. He's a Young Turks viewer, and he described you as a Bernie Sanders progressive. Would you agree to that characterization?
Oh, I've been very vocal about, and I want people to know that I am the only city attorney candidate who has endorsed Bernie Sanders for president. So there are five candidates in this race. Four of us are Democrats. The other three Democrats have endorsed Hillary Clinton. I'm the only one who's endorsed Bernie Sanders. So that's
And
absolutely
then
correct.
I noticed that you have a lot of experience in defending the rights of animals.
Yeah, I'm an animal rights activist. It's one of the things that got me involved in activism when I was 16. Actually, I started my career getting arrested as an animal rights activist when I was 16, protesting the sale of fur in Syracuse, New York, which is where I'm from. And we had the same situation where the police were violating the rights of protesters and just thought that, you're protesting a business, we can just arrest you and round you up. So I dealt with some, from a very early age. That's what inspired me to go to law school, was to defend activists and to defend free speech rights.
Why is it that human beings find it much easier to have empathy for animals? Not all, of course, not you, but many have a harder time extending the same kind of empathy toward fellow human beings.
Wait, so the question is, do you think people extend more empathy to animals than they do to humans? Or
Well, I think one of the things that separates the political parties is human empathy. And
Oh, I think humans are innately, we have empathy innately in us. We're wired as social mammals to have empathy and have compassion. The problem with Republicans is their facts are all wrong. So they think that they're actually helping people by throwing them off welfare because that's going to make them be more self-sufficient. They just have a warped view of the way the world works and how the government actually functions. But, I don't, except for the millionaires and billionaires at the top that just couldn't care less about, the rest of society, rank and file Republicans, I think, have empathy, but empathy is something that can be turned off very easily, too, and especially if people are afraid of, other people coming to take their jobs or something like that. That's something that they can be afraid of. Whereas, animals, people who have pets, dogs, and cats, they're so innocent. So I think that's why.
I see. Yeah, there's rarely a feeling of competition toward pets or animals. For the last question, I want to ask you is about the campaign and the seat that you're running for on Tuesday. It's not a primary. This is it. If you win on Tuesday, you're the city attorney.
No, it is a primary. It's a nonpartisan open primary, and the top two advance. Now, there's one Republican. He's likely to come in first because he's the only Republican. That all the Republicans are going to vote for him. So it is likely.
Right.
My competition in this race really is the other Democrats. It's likely that one of us will face him in November.
So, there are voters out there, I'm sure, and I've spent time in San Diego. I know there are conservatives who sort of look at law enforcement as a way of protecting us from the very same them that Donald Trump is talking about when he talks about thugs or talks about Oakland being the most dangerous place in the world. So does your campaign try to reach out to people who think of law enforcement more as a way to, law and order, as opposed to a city attorney who's going to protect our First Amendment rights?
So yeah, I've been very explicit that we need to reshift the priorities for the. So the city attorney handles civil cases for the city, and then this misdemeanor prosecution, the criminal side, is about half of what the office does. And I've been very explicit that that's a main concern for me. All the past city attorneys that have, whether they've been Democrat or Republican, have not really been concerned with the criminal prosecution side. They've really just, the things that they've focused on have been in the civil side, and whether they're going to, for instance, have a good environmental protection unit or a consumer protection unit, which we don't right now because we have a Republican city attorney who doesn't care about those things. That's all on the civil side. Even the Democrats who've been city attorney in the past have not, nobody's really touched the criminal side. They just let it do what it does. You've got these career prosecutors that are in there, and it's just this, the priorities are all screwed up. There's no emphasis on prosecuting white-collar corporate criminals. Instead, they're prosecuting homeless people for things like illegal lodging. And I'm running campaign commercials on cable right now that say, "I'm the public interest candidate. I will prosecute corporate criminals, not the homeless." So I'm not going to prosecute people just for being homeless. I want to eliminate the cash bail system, which is a tax on the poor. I want to stop prosecuting people just for being poor, which is essentially what happens, and really use the and that doesn't mean that we let crime run rampant. We'll prosecute crime. And real crime, that's what we should be going after, is real crime, but not prosecuting people just for their situation or letting people get caught up in the system, and then it's just making it more difficult for them. I think when we raise people up and when we don't penalize the poor for being poor, we actually have a more inclusive and better functioning society, and it's actually better for all of us. So.
Well, Bryan Pease, I want to thank you for the work that you do and have done. I want to thank you for being a candidate, because I think it is important that people who really want to bring about social change feel safe when they're out there demonstrating, and they don't feel as if their government and their taxpayer dollars are being used to suppress their free speech. That's not a good way to feel about government.
That's exactly right. I couldn't have put it any better myself.
All right. Thanks very much for joining us. Good luck on Tuesday.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric.